Hello Lorcana YouTube and all my fellow Sapphire Steel enjoyers. Today I am very excited to bring you a set 6 tier list video. I invited my good friend BadVegas back onto the channel. For those of you who don't know, he is a Golden Mickey winner using Sapphire Steel. So when he told me he was down to come back on, I was super excited to have him just because of the way me and him talk about the deck. We picked a lot of good cards this time that can be included in the New World, No New World builds. And honestly, a lot of these cards are going to change the way these builds are made and hopefully even introduce a new archetype into Sapphire and Steel. Be on the lookout for a lot of set 6 content coming out on this channel. I have some awesome deck profiles coming up later this week. Well, I think we picked a lot of good cards that are actually playable in the Sapphire Steel meta archetype. And let's just go ahead and dive into it. Alright, so Calhoun. It has resist +1. It's a 2-drop, right? It's a 2-drop uninkable with stats 3/2. And when you challenge a character and destroy it, you gain 2 lore. My first thoughts is our 2-drop in Sapphire Steel really is just me, Tipo, and now with Chicha. But really, like, the only aggro defense that we have is me. And I think these stat lines are pretty strong. The gaining 2 lore is pretty nice. I'm not sure if it can compare or compete with Smee, but like just off the card alone is really strong. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, I think it's a really good card. I don't think it fits in blue steel very well. Primarily because it's uninkable, but
Yeah.
it could probably fit in like a low to the ground tempo list. I also think it's really good in low to the ground like green steel and purple steel lists as well. I think specifically in blue steel, I'd probably give it a B. And in some other lists, I'd give it an A or an
Yeah,
S.
for like a better strategic. Yeah, hopefully someone I'll be testing this card out and we'll see how it goes, but I think B is a good spot. This next card, so me personally, this is my favorite card from set 6 that Sapphire Steel got. Just this card in general, and it's going to be Alice. She's a 3-drop uninkable, unfortunately, with stats 1/4. She quests for 2, and she has ward. And when she quests, she can give another character of yours ward and +1 lore for the turn. Now, I think this card can really allow Blue Steel to have like a different type of like aggro lore archetype. I think it can still fit in like New World lists, not so much no New World, but I think the fact that you can pair this with Champo and give Champo ward and then you're protecting Alice at 2 sounds pretty cool. I don't think it's something that's going to be mandatory or anything like that. So I'd probably give this card a B just because I think it has a lot of potential. What do you think?
I think this card is
Don't scare me.
like on the surface, it's insane, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Um, there's so much potential there. Like in a tempo list, obviously, and then even as a way to enable a combo
Mhm.
is really good. I think it's hard for me to figure out how to fit that in the wheel list, which is
Yeah.
something I'm trying to do, but
It would have to like replace
uh,
P, I think.
yeah, maybe.
And I don't want to do
Um,
that. Yeah.
yeah, that's maybe not the right call, but I'll see if I can figure out how it fits. Otherwise, it's like as a card, it's so good. I'd give it like an A probably.
Okay. Yeah. I think with this card, the way it would have to go down is like you just ramp turn 2, play Alice, Champo, and then from there, like setting up a Tamatoa in the next turn and giving that ward and having Champo is insane. So yeah, I mean, I think A is a really good slot for this one, and it has a lot of potential. And I really can't wait to dive with this card with you some more.
Yeah.
All right, we got this next card. When this card got leaked, I guess when I first saw it, I was actually pretty like content. Like this is like a solid common card. It's a Billy Bones. It's a 2/2 stat line, 2-drop, inkable, quest for
Three
2.
drop.
Oh, 3-drop. Oh, it's a 3-drop. Okay,
Yeah, it's a 3.
yeah. 2/2 stat lines, quest for 2, and when this card is banished, you may banish an item or a location. I've been seeing a lot of like these new location decks in this meta that can get pretty annoying. And even like against red blue, like just playing this like as another Smee, because you're still questing for 2 and you're not really killing anything in that red blue matchup early on either way. And if they answer the Billy Bones, you can pop a Quill or even like a Popsicle. It falls into that slot where we're already like really full in the 2 or 3 drops. But I think this card has potential. I honestly would give this card like anywhere between A and B. What are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I agree. It's definitely got potential. I
Mm-hmm.
think the 3 slot is very awkward for blue
Sapphire
steel a lot of
Steel,
the
yeah.
time. But if locations are a big problem, like especially against red purple, like they can't. Sometimes they'll go for the lines where they want to
Castle
play
turn 4.
castles and then
Yeah.
be prepped to protect the castles, and this is a way to get around that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, I feel like if that becomes an issue, we could slot this in and it would work well enough.
Yeah,
But
especially with that burn deck that topped
yeah,
in Seattle. I feel like a lot of people are playing that.
I'd give it somewhere between, let's say B for now.
Yeah, I'll put B for sure. Is it gonna be a 5-drop Inkable, stat line 4/3? That quest for 4, no effect. So someone who doesn't play Sapphire Steel might see this card and be like, "Oh, why would you want to play this over Champo? Why would you want to play this over Cogsworth?" Well, really, I think when you combo it, for example, with like Pete and like now even potentially Alice, getting a 5-drop early on with 4 lore is pretty cracked, and that stat line is good. Obviously, if it gets attacked, it pretty much dies to anything. So you'd have to pair this card with like Champo or something like that. I think this card has potential in Sapphire Steel list. I don't think it's game breaking. Unless like, we use that Pete combo with Gontu instead of playing Tamatoa when you would at 8 ink. I give this card a B. I know you've been testing this card. How have you liked it in your testing?
I'm on the fence still. I think it's pretty like okay so far.
Mm-hmm.
I need quite a few more games, but I like having another
Threat.
like Chienpo is good, obviously, but
Yeah.
I've never much cared for bodyguards in blue steel.
Mm-hmm.
So having another big lore threat is really nice. Like this card is really good into red blue, right? And kind
Yeah.
of red in general. Um, but it feels like sometimes it's just a little too lackluster just to be
Because
a
it can just,
vanilla.
yeah, it can just get crashed into pretty much anything.
Yeah, I mean, in a heavy steel meta, it's probably not a great card to play, but
For sure.
I'm gonna keep running it and see how it turns out. I'd say probably somewhere between A and B right now.
Okay. I'm going to go ahead and give this card, I'll just put it at A for now. And this card's going to be a 2-drop Inkable. Again, lots of 2 drops, lots of 2, 3 drops. 2-drop Inkable, stat line 0/4, and the effect reads, when you place a card into your Inkwell, this character gains Challenger +2 until the end of the turn. And yeah, it's every time you put a card into your Inkwell, so there's no limit to how strong this card can get.
Yeah.
I think this card is an S, just because of how easy you can put this card into many different variations of New World lists.
Yeah, in my testing so far, this card is like wildly overperforming.
Yes, I agree.
This card is absurdly good for us. Like one of our biggest weaknesses, it was like early aggression, especially with X4s like daisies, of
Mm-hmm.
course. And now we
Sisu.
have a perfect answer on curve with the ramp for all that. And yeah, this card is insane for us.
Yeah, if someone wants to waste time getting rid of Jim, that's fine by me. Yeah, this card, I've loved it in testing so far. Would you agree to putting it on S, our first S card?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yep.
This is gonna be a 6-drop Inkable with stat line 3/3. That quest for 3, right? Yeah, quest for 3. And its effect is, for each item you have in play, this character gets +1 attack and defense. We're an item deck. Usually, by the time you get a 6-drop out, you have a Quill and a Popsicle. So, not assuming that you're putting other items, even if you played one other item, he's coming out for 5/5 or 6/6. I personally haven't tested this card. I know R&B was talking about it. Have you heard anyone else talk about this card or anything like that?
R&B has been doing the item list quite a bit, and
Mm-hmm.
he said this card is just not like it's super lackluster. And I haven't played it nearly as much as him, but the few games I have played, this card just isn't it. Like even in the item list, you're already kind of going slow in that list, and this card is slow.
Hmm. Interesting.
Like against a lot of aggressive decks, this isn't like at 6 ink. You need something that's going
Yeah,
to
you'd
affect
rather
the
pay
board. I
like
feel like
Tinkerbell.
Tinkerbell, yeah. And since you're using your items a lot to draw with Hiram,
He's not
the
gonna
the
come out
stats
as
are so
strong.
fluctuating. It's
Yeah.
like I don't know.
I
I
think
think
C is where it's like, uh, this card's gonna have to have like a build around it, I think. All right, for our next card, we have another Big Hero 6 from the movie. And this is gonna be an action card. It's a one cost inkable. And it has two effects called Prepare Your Bot. And its effects are you can either choose one of the two, ready an item, or ready one of your robot characters.
so we do have a few robots like Baymax, but I don't any of the current robots readying them. I don't believe is going to be worth anything.
Yeah,
Um, the only real use for this, in my opinion, currently
for
is for
dime.
Dime,
Yeah.
and that combo is obviously a little crazy. Like, yeah, I mean it's interesting. The at 12 ink you can gain 15 lore with an aerial art import. I think it'll feel like it'll be a dead card
Most of the
way
time.
more than not,
Yeah. Would you say
and
it's
so it's probably
would you say it's unplayable, or do you want to put this
no.
in the C?
I want to test it. It's possible that it's just crazy, but I think it will be awkward too many times. I'd say probably B or C.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna give it a B because I think if like you build around this card like a dime with we're gonna talk about the next card. I think there's potential there. So yeah, I think B is a good spot for sure. We got Oswald. He's a 2-drop uninkable, and his effect is every time you put a card in the inkwell, you get to look at the top card of your deck. If it's an item card, you get to play it unexerted. If it's not an item card, you put it at the bottom of your deck. If you have two of these out back to back, being able to look at 4 cards and then play a free dime, that's insane, man. Have you personally tested this card or like R&B's list by any chance?
I've tested it very briefly, like maybe 10 games.
Mm-hmm.
I don't quite mesh. I think with the play style, or I just have
Yeah,
to
it's a
had to
definitely a different
figure
play
out.
style.
I just have to get my head around how to play the deck with Oswald, but obviously the value you can pull from him is insane.
Yeah, when I was testing the deck, he's like a really like when you play him on turn 2 and like once you start inking, like obviously you're building the deck around him, right? So you're throwing in cards like Dime or his Workshop and stuff like that. It like hitting one of those cards turn 3 and turn 4 is such a huge like advantage. It's just crazy.
Yeah.
But what I noticed was if they answer him, kind of like Chicha, like it's fine, right? You have a Hiram, but I think the build needs to like be balanced to where like you can't just rely on Oswald, um,
Yeah.
because you could just run out of cards. And what I like about this card a lot, Vegas, is it doesn't fit in New World and it doesn't fit in no New World list. This is creates its own archetype for it.
I think it's incorrect to try and slot in a bunch of extra items that are
Yeah,
super mediocre or just
in New
bad
World list.
just to make him hit more often. I think if you play him, you're gonna play him similar to Chicha, where you're just gonna fit him in the curve and go for value while you're doing your normal game plan. You know, ramping to 6 for tank against certain decks or whatever. I think it's wrong to just put in a bunch of items just to make him hit more.
Yeah,
But yeah,
that makes sense.
he's insane and should be S. Baymax is a 5-drop inkable 2/6 quest for 2. When you play this character and whenever he quests, you can remove up to 2 damage from another chosen character of yours, and you can gain 1 lore for each 1 damage removed that way.
That's what's gonna make that card really good. That you can do it on play and on quest.
For instance, in the red-blue matchup,
Mhm.
you can, when you're questing with Smee and then you ramp to 5, you can heal Smee, gain lore, and let Smee keep questing. I think
Yeah,
in
that's insane. I didn't even think about that.
yeah, I think in wheelless he probably is a little awkward.
hmm
I will test him in the Gantu slot after if I don't like Gantu, but in a tempo sort of list, I think this character has a lot of potential. One more thing I want to add is if green steel stays as good as it is, um, this card gains a little bit more value from stopping Go-Go
hmm
from giving them a bunch of lore. So I think that's something to think about. I'd probably put it at like I haven't done much testing, so I don't know how much I can say. It's probably A or B.
All right, so this next card is going to be Jim Hawkins. Is a 5-cost uninkable with stat lines 5/5. He shits for 3 on any character named Jim Hawkins, and when you play him, you may deal 1 damage to a chosen character or location.
I don't remember who exactly brought it up to a Ravensburger dev. They asked if it keeps the challenger from the small Jim Hawkins
Uh huh.
before you shift. So it's a temporary effect, so it would keep it after the shift. So if you ink twice with the small one, then shift it, your big one for that turn has 9 attack. I think it definitely has a spot in Blue Steel going forward.
Now this card, another 4-drop character, and I gassed this up card against you. It's a 4-drop inkable, and we got our boy Pluto. And this is a bodyguard. A bodyguard with stat line 1/5, that quest for 1. But its effect, Vegas, is what I think is really interesting and that can pair with our deck really well. And his effect is, while this character has no damage, he has +4 attack. So on play, he's a 4-drop that's 5/5 with bodyguard.
I've never really been a big fan of the
Mm-hmm.
cards like this, like that when they
Lose
have
damage.
damage, they have
Yeah. Lose
less
attack.
attack,
Yeah.
but obviously bodyguard helps this card a lot.
Yeah.
I think in wheel and no wheel, this card probably doesn't see play, but
Interesting.
I can see it being considered for like a tempo list.
I think C is a good spot for it.
Yeah, we can give it a C.
This is another card that I really hope we can look back on and we'll be wrong about it. But I
I
really
hope I'm
can't
wrong
wait.
about this card.
Yeah, this card's really cool. 2-cost uninkable action card, and this card says
It's deal 2 damage to chosen character. Then you can choose to discard a card and deal 2 damage to another chosen character.
can be the same one, correct?
It cannot be the same character. Yeah, I was initially pretty interested in this
Mm-hmm.
card. Like, there's certain aggro lines without Daisy that this would be good into. There's red purple's Chernobog Flynn opening. There's green steel's Diablo Morph opening
Yeah.
that you can do. You can just shut them down on the draw, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but in practice, it feels not great, especially discarding a card into green steel.
Yeah.
I've been trying out 2 fire the cannons, 1 twin fire, and the more I play, I'm like, this should just be another fire the
Fire the
cannons.
cannons.
My current testing makes me feel like it's a C,
All right.
but I hope I'm wrong about that.
Yeah, they're gonna be one of those cards as well. That again, if we're wrong about it, it'll be interesting to see how people can like come up to where they can make this card broken. Tadashi, it's a 3-drop uninkable with stat lines 2/2, and he quests for 2, and his effect is on your opponent's turn. So only on your opponent's turn. When this card is banished, you may place the top card of your deck into your inkwell, and then you can play this card into your inkwell as well. So on when he dies on your opponent's turn, you get to ramp 2 cards. I think this card can fit into the Sapphire and Steel decks. It's just that we have so much other like competition with our baby slots and the ramp slots. What are your thoughts on this one? Because I know you were like pretty hyped about this card.
Yeah, I mean, I think this card is absurd.
Mm-hmm.
Um, The you're right that it doesn't really fit in Sapphire Steel list currently. There's no like you said, you don't want to just drop this and wait, and not with how Blue Steel is built currently.
Yeah.
There are some blue decks that play more, tempo or mid range that
Hmm.
I think he is absolutely great in, but
Yeah.
it just won't fit in current lists.
Yeah, I played against this card yesterday in the mirror match. Someone had it. And when he played it, I was like, oh man, this is going to suck. But then I was just like, wait a minute. What if I just don't answer it? Like, what if I just don't answer it? And that card stayed on the board all game.
Yeah, I think you can give it B. I think in specific tempo lists, he could very easily be A or S, but
Yeah,
in Blue
yeah.
Steel currently, it's B or worse.
Yeah, another card where we hope to see this card like stand out. This card is a 4-drop Inkable, stat line 3/3, quest for 2. And this card's effect is when this character quests, you may return one of your chosen items to your hand so that the next item you play, it costs 2 less ink to play it. Right away, this is a free popsicle, right? And you play him, if he gets to live, you quest, bounce a popsicle back to your hand, and you get to play that popsicle back for free. That's cool, but not like game impacting, I don't think. As a 4-drop Inkable, you might rather play like Tala that does something on play because he has to quest for that effect to work. What are your thoughts on this one?
So in Blue Steel specifically, we need our early drops to be
Mm-hmm.
either higher room for draw or something that can contest the board.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with this card is you don't really want to be contesting the board. Like the effect is clearly good, so you're like you're gonna be tempted to quest with it, right? Uh, I think there are some interesting possibilities with it, but it's just not good enough. Maybe if we get like crazier items down the road,
Yeah.
like
Or pairing it with
specifically
like Oswald, like an Oswald deck, maybe. Some
right,
weird
or
scenario.
like maybe we get a specifically like very good 6-drop item that this lets you play the turn after playing him. I do want to say like my friend Coffin
Mm-hmm. Shout out the
mentioned
homie
this to
Coffin.
me. Yeah, for sure. He said going forward, especially for 2-game format, we should be looking at cards that help us win on the draw, and this
Yes.
card is not doing that. This is a 6-drop uninkable,
Mm-hmm.
4/4 stat line, quest for 3.
Quest for 3.
And it says, whenever this character quests, you may banish chosen item or location to gain 2 lore.
Now, Vegas, can I only do that with my locations and items?
No,
So you're
you
telling
can
me,
hit opponent's items and locations.
and if you pair this card with Chempo, and if they can't answer him, obviously in some matchups like Green Steel might not be good, but it doesn't matter because you can do it on your own items and you're gonna get the 5 lore.
Right.
This card's insane, man. What other thoughts do you have on this card? What do you think?
This was one of the other top 3 that
Yeah.
I was very interested in. I think I love this card. I think there are times with Ariel against certain decks, like Mirror, Red, Blue, whatever,
Uh-huh.
where Ariel won't be able to quest for 5,
Yeah.
and this will be able to because you're almost guaranteed to have at least one item on the board.
Yes.
Um,
The stat
and then
line
you
is pretty
have
good too.
yeah, and then you have situations against like Red, Purple where this is on the board and they can't drop a location now.
Can't get
I
Medusa.
think in
Cannot get Medusa.
practice it has felt slightly lackluster just because I mean the meta right now is so low to the ground. It's not.
Yeah.
It's a little slow, right? But there's. I think there's very high potential for this card.
Yes.
Currently, there's a lot of green bounce going on. There's Big Elsa, the 5-drop in purple,
Mhm.
also makes this kind of a tough card. But I
Yeah,
think there's
you
ways
have
to
to
work
like
around that.
pair this card with like Chempo and have like a specific build with him towards it that can still be like a new world list, 100%. Just because you have what red blue, red purple, and then again this card can still get that effect but on your items as well. I don't think it's a mandatory add-in, but I definitely think it's a card for sure.
Yeah, I'd say for sure. I'm
Awesome.
buying 2 of these enchantments as soon as I can. This is Sail the Azurite Sea.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, 2 cost inkable action.
Uh-huh.
This turn, you may put an additional card from your hand into your inkwell face down. Draw a card.
All right. Is that? Do you have to bring that exerted? No, right?
No,
Oh my gosh.
there's a couple things with this card.
Mm-hmm.
Like you, the adding additional card to your inkwell is kind of like a static thing for that turn. So
Uh-huh.
you can draw the card and then decide what to ink. You don't have
That
to
yeah,
ink
that's
before
that's
drawing.
crazy. Yeah.
Um, in blue steel specifically, there's a lot of cool lines like um, on 2 you can play this, draw a card, ink, and then fire the cannons,
Mm-hmm.
or play a second popsicle.
Mm-hmm.
I need to learn the lines for this like a little bit better, but there's some crazy stuff you can do with it.
What I've done is I go Jim Hawkins 2, and then turn 3 play Sail to the Sea, and play like a Smee. That's pretty
That's
insane.
pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I think going forward, if you want to run this card, it's a little riskier with the high uninkable numbers that a lot
Yeah.
of lists are running. Um,
Mm-hmm. I
but
agree.
it's just so good a card.
Yeah, the
It's
card
definitely
is
S
yeah.
tier.
Yeah, that card's insane. That wraps up our tier list. Vegas, I want to thank you for coming on to the channel again. It's always
Absolutely.
an awesome time having you on here. Such a skilled player, and your thoughts on cards, the way you break them down. I just love talking Sapphire Steel with other players who are like that. You have any shout outs or
Yeah,
anything you want to
likewise.
say before the video ends up?
No, just thanks again for having me on. Shout outs to all the Blue Steel family.